The movie starts 6 days after the previous one, showing Joel, who has been haunted non-stop by the sinister smile entity since witnessing Rose's shocking suicide. He drives his car near the house, which belongs to some drug dealers, and confronts one of them with a gun. Joel forces the dealer into the house where dealer's brother is also there. Joel then begins stabbing the dealer in order to break free from the curse. The brother reacts by shooting at Joel, and they end up in a shootout where Joel accidentally kills the brother also. Since the person who was supposed to take on the curse is now dead, Joel panics as there is no one to pass the curse. Another dealer named Louis Frigoli sees this happen. Joel points his gun at Louis, but Louis quickly insists he's just a regular guy who came by to buy drugs and has nothing to do with the chaos. Hearing this, Joel hesitates and decides not to shoot. As he steps outside, he finds himself in even more trouble as more of the brother's associates show up and start chasing Joel. He runs into the street but gets hit by a car, and his bloody body gets dragged along the road, creating a shape that looks like a smile. The movie then shifts to New York, where we're introduced to pop superstar Sky Riley as she heads into an interview with Drew Barrymore. Although Sky has achieved great success in her music career, she has struggled with issues related to drugs and alcohol. She is also still healing emotionally from a car crash that took the life of her boyfriend, actor Paul Hudson. Sky's mother, Elizabeth, is her manager, but since the accident, she has lost touch with her best friend, Gemma. With her upcoming tour on the horizon, Sky is hopeful that it will mark the beginning of her long-awaited comeback. As soon as she finishes her interview, Sky heads to rehearsal for the upcoming tour. She struggles though, repeatedly falling from a sharp pain in her back, likely a result of the accident. On the way home with her mother Elizabeth and her assistant Joshua, Sky secretly texts a guy named Louis, asking him for Vicodin to ease the pain. When Louis responds and asks her to come over, she leaves the car and gets into the taxi to Louis's home. When Sky arrives at his apartment, Louis suddenly grabs her and puts a sword to her throat. He starts to panic, saying he didn't remember texting Sky, and tries to explain that something has been stalking him. A moment later, Louis runs out of the next room, screaming in terror, and then an invisible force, the entity, rushes into his mouth. A strange smile spreads across Louis's face, and he picks up a weight plate, smashing it into his face 3 times until his skin is hanging off his jaw. Horrified, Sky vomits and almost calls 911 but hesitates, realizing the trouble she'd be in for being at a drug dealer's place. Sky is getting ready for her tour, but she can't stop thinking about the scary things she witnessed. At a meet and greet with her fans, one fan named Alfredo gets a bit too intense during their photo together. He grabs Sky and tells her she's beautiful, but then he says something really weird about wanting to take her skin, which makes security step in and kick him out. After taking a moment to calm down, Sky goes back to meeting her fans. Then a young girl gives her a really strange smile. At night, while resting in her room, Sky receives a mysterious message asking if she was at Louis's house. She then calls her best friend Gemma and apologies to her and asks her meet, which she agrees to come to her place. After the call, Sky hears a strange noise and investigates, only to find a t-shirt she had signed for Alfredo. As she moves through the room, she's horrified to discover his clothes, along with his soiled underwear, scattered across the floor. She then spots what looks like Alfredo, standing naked at the end of the dark hallway, before he begins to chase her. Panicked, Sky rushes to the door, where she's relieved to find Gemma, whom she had called earlier to reconcile. Sky explains the horrifying encounter with Louis, and Gemma agrees to stay the night. As they try to sleep, Sky opens up to Gemma about the darkness she's felt inside even before the car accident, to which Gemma bluntly replies it's because she's a horrible person. Suddenly, Sky sees the entity take the form of Gemma, smiling eerily at her and making a car honking sound. Sky wakes up the next morning to find Gemma in the kitchen, making breakfast. The next day, while performing for her tour, Sky is thrown off balance when a flash of Paul's image appears in her mind, causing her to fall. Furious, she accuses one of the dancers of distracting her. Later, when she returns to her room, she finds it in disarray and immediately blames Joshua, accusing him of trashing it. But he is unaware about this and tells her he did not do that. Elizabeth comes and takes her inside the room, where she informs her that Joshua had been with her all day, leaving Sky to realize how paranoid and unstable she's starting to appear. Sky reluctantly attends a charity event hosted by Darius, who invited her to speak. While reading from the teleprompter, it stalls, forcing Sky to improvise. Her attempt at a speech quickly spirals into a rant about her personal struggles. Just as the teleprompter resumes, it prompts Sky to read Paul's name aloud, causing the audience to gasp in shock. To her horror, she sees Paul smiling and walking toward her. Sky desperately yells at him to stop smiling, only to snap back to reality. As an older woman approaches her offering help, a bloodied Paul reappears and grabs Sky, causing her to panic. In her desperation, she shoves the woman off the stage, sending her crashing onto a table, leaving the audience horrified. Sky bolts off the stage in fear. Back at home, Sky is bombarded with more messages from the unknown number. The texts reveal that the sender knows who she is and details what she's been seeing and going through. Along with the messages, Sky receives a chilling video from Lewis's phone, where he talks about witnessing the entity. The mysterious sender invites Sky to meet them at a public location, leaving her uneasy and unsure of what to do next. Sky then sneaks into a bar where she runs into Morris, the guy who had been reaching out to her. He tells her that his brother fell victim to the entity, which made him rip his own jaw off with a crowbar. Morris has noticed a pattern with other victims and was the one who discovered Lewis's body, getting Sky's number from his phone. He proposes a risky plan. As a nurse, he could stop Sky's heart, kill her temporarily, and then revive her before the entity can finish the job. Sky is not on board with this idea, and angrily leaves as fans start to notice her and crowd around. Sky tries to unwind at home alone, but suddenly, the entity shows up as her backup dancers, all smiling creepily at her. They start to chase her around the apartment until they trap her and attack. One of them seems to shove their arm down her throat and she loses consciousness. The movie then goes to flashback. We see Sky with Paul on the night of the accident. They were both high on cocaine while Paul was driving, and he made her mad by calling her a psycho. In a fit of rage, she grabbed the steering wheel, causing them to veer off the road and crash badly. Sky woke up with serious injuries, but Paul was already dead. Sky wakes up in a hospital, confused and scared after being found passed out in her apartment. Elizabeth is there with her, but Sky wants to cancel their tour since she's not feeling well. Elizabeth insists that if they cancel now, especially after the last tour, it could ruin Sky's career and the record label might sue them for a ton of money. When Sky says that's all Elizabeth cares about, something strange happens. The entity shows up, looking like Elizabeth, and makes Sky punch the mirror and hurt herself badly, even taking out her own eye. Terrified, Sky runs to the door, realizing she's holding a sharp piece of glass and her gown is soaked in blood. She sees what looks like her mother's dead body and panics when Joshua tries to come in. Sky wants to get away, but Joshua notices the blood on her. Doctors and security rush to help her, but in a moment of desperation, she grabs a guard's gun and escapes. Sky is out on the streets when she bumps into Gemma. She forces Gemma's driver at gunpoint to hand over the car, so she can search for Morris. Gemma insists going with her, and she agrees. But while they're driving, the real Gemma calls Sky. It turns out the Gemma she's been with was actually the entity in disguise. Sky takes control of the car and manages to escape safely to meet Morris. Later, Sky meets Morris at an old Pizza Hut to get into the freezer, hoping to avoid serious brain damage. As the process starts, Morris leaves the freezer, and suddenly the entity shows up looking just like Sky did on the night of the accident. It attacks her, but Sky fights back by biting its thumbs off and grabbing a syringe meant to knock her out. Sadly, the syringe doesn't work, and the entity traps Sky in the freezer. A short time later, Sky finds herself on stage for the first show of her tour. Elizabeth is alive and in the audience with Joshua and Darius, along with hundreds of fans. Sky sees the entity crawling out of a shell that looks like her, revealing its terrifying face and huge body before it slithers into her mouth. She collapses in front of the crowd, but then gets back up and smiles. In a shocking moment, she starts smashing her head with the microphone until it goes through her eye, leaving her horrified fans to watch in disbelief. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.